Hi, Consul General Akunis. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, David. Good
All
to
right.
see
So
you.
first, before we get into some local issues that are really affecting a lot of New Yorkers, let's first talk about what's going on overseas. It's all over the headlines. What's the state of Israel right now? That there seems to be this impending, everyone's sort of looking towards Iran right now.
They are looking toward us, actually. They are threatening us. They are threatening this state of Israel. They declare that they will attack the state of Israel. They declared, 5 decades ago, decades, that they want to destroy the state of Israel. And now they, as they are saying almost every day, they're going to do it. And they want to attack Israel, not only from Iran, with their militias in Iraq, from Lebanon with Hezbollah, and from Yemen with the Houthis. So we are actually ready. We know how to defend our people. We will do it. We'll not let Iran to threaten our citizens. And by the way, it's not only against Israel. I just saw that the Iranians actually send a message to the United States to stay out of it. Okay, so the threat is not only against Israel, is against United States, United Kingdom, and actually the Western world.
And then how would you describe sort of, the mindset of Israelis? I think when you see Israeli citizens speaking, every day Israelis on TV, very resilient, very
Yeah.
strong. They're like, we've been through this before. How would you describe it? You're obviously at the forefront to a certain
First
degree.
of all, we've been. It's a fact. I remember that in 1991, it was exactly the same situation. I was then in high school, the last year in high school, and the threat was from Iraq. And Saddam Hussein actually attacked Israel from January 17 to the end of February with something like 40 missiles from Iraq. But the American forces defeated him, and the coalition, the Western coalition, defeating it. Of course, it took time, but Saddam Hussein is not with us anymore. I don't want to say that, of course, Iran will not be there as well, because Iran is much bigger than Iraq, and there is a lot of new technologies
Yeah.
to Iran, but we know how to defend our people. We have the technologies, and we have the courage, and we have actually the power
Mhm.
to defeat all our enemies. And we just uh, said to defeat our enemies. That includes the Hamas in Gaza. We will not give up. Tomorrow, actually, August 15, the Hamas boycott the negotiation. They will not come to the negotiation and to talk about the hostage deal, or to talk about a temporary or other kind of ceasefire like the American administration wants, like all of us want, okay?
Yeah.
But we will actually finish this war only after we'll defeat them in the Gaza Strip. By the way, David, they actually attacked the Tel Aviv area
Yeah.
yesterday with 2 missiles from the Gaza Strip. So until we will not defeat them, we will not declare our victory over them. And of course, we want to see all of the hostages back home in
Now,
their
do you think
homeland with their families.
Now, with Hamas, they were, that broke yesterday that they were saying they were going to sit out the negotiations. In terms of getting the hostages home, do you really think that it's going to be negotiations at the end I mean, do you think Hamas is ever going to come to the table, so to speak, for negotiations, or returning the hostages home, getting the hostages, finding hostages is really going to be a result of just Israel's army going in there and retrieving them themselves?
I talked to you and others a few months ago, and we said, and I said to you and to the others, that the world must put Hamas under pressure, not
Mhm.
the Israeli government supposed to be under pressure. And we can see here that actually Hamas declared that they will not come, as you said, as you asked, to the negotiation table. So now United States and the Europeans and the other must put, and the Qatarians, of course, and the Egyptians as well, they must put Hamas under pressure. What does it mean that they will not come to the? They want a ceasefire because they know that we are very close actually to a very impressive victory on them in the Gaza Strip. Okay, they know it, but they don't want to be part of the deal. So the deal will not be with ourselves. The deal is supposed to be with Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
And if the American administration and the American leaders and the Israeli leaders and of course the prime minister and the cabinet ministers and we all want the hostage to actually the Hamas will actually let them go finally. All of us must put Hamas under pressure to come to the negotiation because, as you said, you saw the Prime Minister office declaration that the very seniors from the Israeli side will be actually will depart to the negotiation.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, right now, so it's just, we just don't know anything about Iran. You don't have a crystal ball. So it's not like you can look in and say what's going to happen when, you see some news networks saying, oh, there's like a date or a time when Iran maybe would attack in some capacity. It's not even known how such an attack really would happen.
I don't think that, I will tell you something. I think that all of us, we don't need to talk so much.
Yeah.
We need to do whatever actually we need to do. It's to defend our people, and we will do it. I think that we will, if we will talk much, less, it would be better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me
of course, about the attack. Yeah.
Yeah, so let me transition a little bit to here in New York. And of course, we've seen, we know this. You and I, we've discussed this, the residual effects, October 7th, Hamas's activity, you're seeing the protests here. So let me get back. So here, so you spoke with actually a victim of an anti-Jewish crime in Brooklyn, Crown Heights, an Israeli citizen man, religious. He was wearing religious attire. A man who has since been arrested for attempted murder as a hate crime the NYPD is investigating was stabbed in the abdomen, hospitalized. Doctor said he came, this close to dying. And then the suspect shouted "Free Palestine." And obviously it's being investigated
we know,
as do you want to die? You spoke with him. So I guess quickly, one, were you surprised or is it just more of the same? I mean, this is to another degree in terms of just a protest. I mean, stabbings, like had this guy died, it would be unbelievable. And what, in speaking with him, what did you glean?
Yeah, I will tell you in general. We talked about the screamings. We talked about the actually the violence and the campuses in front of the Israeli consulate, in front of the Nova exhibition 1 month or 2 months ago. And we learn from the history that the beginning is just, screamings, but the screamings are very, very clear. Death to America, death to Israel. So there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of violence. And there's some people here in other places around the world. By the way, it's not only here in United Kingdom or in France or other places around the world that they can hear the screamings. And they think to themselves, okay, if so, I can do whatever I want and I can stab this Jew around, actually, it was very close to 770 in Brooklyn. Yes. So, and if he shouted, and I talked, as I said, with the victim, he shouted against him, "Free Palestine," so we consider the attack as hate crime. And I'm saying it, and I will continue to say again and again and again, my fellow Americans, you must, actually to say to these people, to these groups, that's it. Enough is enough. If you want to protest, you can protest. Of course, it's very, it's a fundamental idea of the American Constitution. Of course, the freedom of speech, but the freedom of speech is not to let the other attack you in the name of the freedom of speech. And that's what happened lately. That's what happened lately in Brooklyn. And I hope that it will be actually the last one.
And then do you feel so almost a bit of it's interesting you're saying it starts with yelling, right? And it could go
Yeah,
somewhere
that's
else.
right.
I
This
mean,
is the fact.
really, is it almost a bit like is it almost a bit like a virus, really? It starts somewhere and it just grows. You know what I mean? It can continue, right?
I want to tell you something, and it won't be easy. We must learn from the history that it started with, as you said, yelling and screaming, and then they burned books,
Hmm.
then they burned synagogues, and then they burned people.
Hmm.
That's what happened. And by the way, it's only 90 years ago. That's what happened in Europe. We must learn from the history and to say to those people, okay, enough is enough. You can't burn the American flag. You can't burn the Israeli flag. Okay, it's part of the Constitution. Okay, I have to tell you that it's very strange that in the name of the freedom of speech, someone is yelling here that to America, here in America.
Yeah.
And I think that you should actually stand very strong against it.
And
I'm
so
talking about the American society, of course.
And then, so speaking about the protesters, school starts back at September 3rd for most of the colleges here in New York, including Columbia, which was, we know, the hotbed for all this activity. Columbia now is restricting access to the Morningside campus to people with ID. Guests will need to register. And there's only 5 entry points to the campus.
Mhm.
And this follows really last year when many of the protesters said they will be back. In fact, there was graffiti spray painted on the campus there that said, quote, "We'll be back." Then they used the B word, right? A defamatory word for women, right? So I don't know who that was targeting. So are you hopeful? And then NYU has also said that they're going to do training with the educators there and students, whatever that does.
Mhm.
Are you hopeful that that will maybe curb some of these protests and activity like that?
I will tell you. First of all, I asked from a few Jewish organizations to meet me here in the consulate next week, actually, and to talk about it, to see what we can do to
Hmm.
defend our students, the Israeli students and the Jewish students. That's the first thing, and we will let you know
Yeah.
right after. But I think that the police must force the law. The police must be much stronger. If there is a violence, and the threats against Israeli and Jewish students, the police must be there and
Hmm.
force the law. That's it. It's not so complicated.
Yeah. So hopefully, you think these restrictions maybe will do something that Columbia has done. I mean, because they also, they had some deans resign that were booted out. They're doing these. So in theory, I guess I just don't, we have to see, I guess, or
We know, first of all, I think that we need to stand for the truth, and we must do it to reflect the truth and the facts in front of the students, even though a lot of them automatically are against Israel, automatically. And I
yeah,
saw a lot actually of short clips that actually the students there don't know what they are talking about.
yeah,
They don't know the facts. They don't know the history. They don't know the current situation. They don't know nothing. They are screaming, yelling, as you said. Yeah, intifada, intifada. What is intifada?
yeah,
What is it? What they want intifada here? That's what they want. Believe me, the American people and the neighbors of Colombia, I'm talking about the New Yorkers,
yeah,
they don't want intifada in their backyard. Believe me
yeah,
that they don't. So
yeah,
don't threat us, okay? Don't
yeah.
stop threat us. And another thing, stop lecturing us. I want to say to the students and even to some of your colleagues and leaders around the world, stop lecturing Israel. We didn't start a fire.
Mhm.
October 7th was one of the cruelest massacres in the human history. Okay? So we know what to do. We are doing it because we need to defend our people. There
Mhm.
is no reason, of course, that, by the way, to this week, I think it's 19 years it's 19 years since the disengagement actually planned. And we withdraw from Gaza.
Yeah.
We, the Israelis, ruin synagogues, ruin cemeteries, ruin settlements, beautiful places, agriculture, and other. Okay, so we must reflect the truth.
Yeah.
Palestine free Gaza from what? Yeah, I agree. They need to free Gaza from Hamas. I
Yeah.
agree. And we will do it. We are doing it.
And then just a couple more things. So today, actually, hot off the presses news is that Nassau County on Long Island, the Bruce Blakeman, the county executive there, signed into law. It's done. First in the nation law banning masks, and this is targeted specifically to protests. And
That's
there
right.
was a lot of discussion here in New York City after there was that infamous incident on the subway in Lower Manhattan when the protesters were yelling, Zionists, identify yourself, and they were all wearing masks, right? But now Nassau County has gone ahead of New York City and done it, right? So do you think that's a welcome move? And just so you know, and they're obviously saying that it's meant to target those who would commit crimes wearing masks, and if you're caught doing it, it could be a fine of $1,000.
I'm so very glad to hear it. It's good news. Yeah, we deserve good news from time to time. I hope that other counties and other places actually will continue and actually will do this very basic thing to do, very fundamental thing to do, because they're using, and we know it, they're using the mask actually to attack people.
Yeah,
We saw you talked about the
the
subway.
subway.
It wasn't only on the subway, among the campuses, around the campuses. They are bringing their masks, and they're so. By the way, they believe in themselves. These protesters, but they're using the mask actually to hide. They are
Yeah.
cowards.
No, no, no. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, two more quick questions. Okay, one, this is in Connecticut. I know out of your official jurisdiction, the New York Consul doesn't deal with it, but I just want to ask you generally. So there's a Connecticut state legislature, Annabelle Figaroa. So she released a video in Spanish yesterday saying that a Jewish person cannot represent, and she's from Stamford, Connecticut, cannot represent this district. And she was directly talking about her opposing candidate, who's also Democrat, by the way, who's Jewish. And fast forward a day, he won by 60%, over 60%. So two things. So I don't necessarily need you to get into the politics of it. I appreciate that. But do you think I'm beginning to wonder, we saw, Cori Bush, right? A member of the squad
Yeah,
federally,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
She was voted out. Mondaire Jones, much more locally, right? In the Hudson Valley, also, got out. Now her. And now I'm wondering, and I mean, we know this, it's not something to wonder, but that if going through the, democratic process is a way to really institute some of this change, we're getting rid of, or, a lot of these lawmakers are being kind of voted out or won't be in the primary. Do you think, so just two questions. Do you think this is a reckoning by a lot of voters being like, they don't represent their views on Israel and or handling protests and or Jewish residents of the region does not mesh with how I do?
I want to tell you something in
Yeah,
general. First of all, I think it's a shame. Shame on her to say such a thing or to
yeah,
tweet such a thing. I consider to the issue actually that you just mentioned, I consider it like a hate crime.
yeah,
It is a hate crime. It's unacceptable. And I hope we can see the results. And the results actually reflects my opinion. And my opinion is that the truth always comes out.
yeah.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
Yeah. It's just interesting because a lot of times when candidates say stuff like that, regardless of the group, it never ends well for them. So it's a little baffling.
No, but you should know, in general, the truth always comes out. I saw actually, you just mentioned her tweet, but
Yeah.
I saw last week the Colombia boycott initiative or something like that. They tweeted that they want to destroy the Western civilization.
Hmm.
They tweet it. So you just need to listen to them, just to listen, not to be
Hmm.
naive, not to be naive, to be very, even if the actually the reality is very difficult these days. I agree. It's
Yeah.
not so comfortable, to deal with these issues because everybody, wants to do his, what he wants to do every day.
Hmm.
But if there is a threat, you must, wake up and see. And by the way, they already said it. They
Hmm.
said that they want to destroy the Western civilization. So wake up, please.
Do you think, and I just want to tag one question, then I've one a lighter question for you. Do you
Okay.
think there's so much hypocrisy around statements like this? People who are slamming Western culture, civilization. A lot of this is done on Western social platforms. Many of the people are wearing, I remember seeing videos of people tearing down the hostage, and one of the individuals is wearing, a Ralph Lauren sweatshirt, which is clearly Western, let alone, he was Jewish, is Jewish. Another person's wearing Levi's.
Right.
I mean, it's full of all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
hypocrisies, I think, which
Yeah.
are sometimes tough to reconcile.
It's full of hypocrisy. What do you mean? You want to ask me if I think that it's hypocrisy? Of course that it's hypocrisy. We are actually the truth is that Israel is under attack,
Yeah,
and not because we started a fire. It's because of the October 7th massacre. And it's not only about October 7th, because the lies about Israel, most of them are not new. Okay,
yeah.
let's talk about the occupation subject. Most of the people don't know that since 1993 or 4, 97% of the Palestinians are living under the PA, the Palestinian Authority. So they are talking about there is no occupation
Yeah.
in Judea and Samaria. 97, almost 98% of the Palestinians. So what is this? Is a Palestinian occupation on the Palestinians themselves? And we just mentioned the disengagement in 2005. So we withdraw. Okay, why do we need the protective edge operation in 2014? Why do we need now to send our brave soldiers to Rafah or
Yeah.
to Khan Yunis or to Jabalia? Why? Because they're attacking us, still attacking us from there. And the tunnels, you saw the last tunnel between Egypt and Gaza,
Mhm.
it's wider than the Lincoln Tunnel,
Yeah.
wider than the Lincoln Tunnel here. So they can actually and they did it to smuggle weapon and the smuggled weapon and actually to use the weapon against the Israeli citizens. So what do you think that we will do? We will not defend our people. We'll continue to defend our people like every
Mhm.
modern and democratic, I have to tell you, a state all around the world, in the United States, in Europe, in the Far East. That's what every leaders must do to defend their people with the army, of course, and
And
to defeat
obviously
their
this year,
enemies,
and
and to defeat the enemies.
we'll talk again in a few weeks, and we have one more question, but we'll talk again in a few weeks. But I think definitely the Jewish holidays in the fall will also probably take on
Yeah.
another vibe. Okay, so on a just one last question on a slightly different
Yes.
note. So talking about one on a lighter note about one of Israel's most popular exports, Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
She is going to be starring in the Disney's film Snow White coming out next year. But now there's, by some, they've started this boycott effort on social media, and it's being fueled uncomfortably and awkwardly enough, I would think, by her co-star in the film. It'd be like your coworker kind of taking to social media to slam you. But anyways, so Rachel Zegler, who's not Jewish, who has taken to social media, promoting the film, but popped on a Palestinian flag, could have been intentional. So that just sort of, grew a lot of this, right? And Rachel Zegler from New Jersey, interestingly enough, one of her first productions that got her into acting was also Fiddler on the Roof. So she's no stranger to Jewish culture. So, I mean, is this just yet another
She's
sort of,
stranger to the truth.
yeah,
She's stranger to the truth. Did she know something about what happened now in Israel and in the Middle East? She knows something about the Iranian threat. She knows something about the Hezbollah. She knows something about Hamas. She knows something about the radical Islam. I can't stand it. It's ridiculous. It's shame on her, really. And if she wants to boycott Israel, she wants to boycott the Jewish culture. She wants to boycott the Israeli culture. It's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. And I'm calling from here to all the American citizens to buy tickets to the next Gal Gadot movie. I'll do it.
Gal Gadot obviously makes a good Snow White. I mean,
right. Gal Gadot, she's wonderful.
Right?
She's wonderful, and we are very proud.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. All right,
Thank you
Consul
so
General
much.
Akunis, thank you so much for
Thank
speaking,
you.
and we will speak
Thank you for
again
your time.
very soon. Thank you.